Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you all here to the Prog Monster. My name is Murph, and I am the host of this show. So, we're doing that mini series we've been running. We do one episode a week. Usually comes out on noon. Well, it has come out every week on noon on Thursday afternoon. And this is no exception. This will be episode number 3 of those rock artists that got the ball started or got the ball rolling, however you want to say it. So we're going back to the 1950s, and I've picked out 7 artists that I think were very influential in rock music and were either the first to do this or the first to do that. Most of them have received some kind of award or been in the Hall of Fame. In fact, I think all of the ones so far have been in the Hall of Fame. The artist we're going to go with today is Bill Haley of Bill Haley and the Comets. I didn't know this until I started researching Bill Haley a bit, that there was over 100 different Comets that were in the band as called Comets over the history of the band and Bill Haley. So Bill Haley was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Comets were inducted separately into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So Bill Haley and the Comets, he was born William John Clifton Haley back in July 6, 1929. In Highland Park, Michigan, and he died on February the 9th, 1981, at the age of 55 in Harlingen, Texas. So he was a vocalist. Of course, he was the vocalist for the band, played guitar, and also did some double bass on some of their stuff as well. So I guess what Bill Haley is most famous for, at least to me, is that he's kind of the face of rock and roll before there was a face of rock and roll. So some of these other artists, like the last 2 days that we did, the last 2 episodes we did, they had influence on a lot of genres as well as rock and roll. But Bill Haley has the distinction of having the first rock and roll hit, which I believe was Crazy Man Crazy, which he says he got from his daughter, or teenage girls were always saying, "That's Crazy Man Crazy." So he wrote a song, and that was his first UK or his first hit, really. The genre of music that Bill Haley played in originally was Western swing before rock became a thing. And then there's some rockabilly in there. And then eventually rock and roll, which is kind of the first real big hit rock and roll song, Crazy Man Crazy, which came out in May of 1953, that kind of it was kind of the first single that was a hit for rock music. It's recognized as a rock and roll hit, I guess is the best way to put it. He had one number 1 hit in his career. Of course, that's not going to be hard to figure out. We're Gonna Rock Around the Clock. That was the big hit for them, the band, and it was the first number 1 and only number 1 hit for him. He also had 15 top 40 hits as well, spread out over maybe a 5-year period, I guess, from 53 through around about 58, 59. So that's a little bit more like 6 or 7 years, but somewhere around that total. Sold over 60 million albums. Of course, that's quite a bit for an artist from the 1950s. Started his career in 1946, which is fairly long time before rock became a thing, which Elvis put on the map in the mid-50s. So he was doing that kind of country western feeling, kind of western swing music, I guess you would call it, and then doing some rockabilly before he really became a rock star and kind of started that genre off. And he continued in the form of doing this kind of stuff right up to 1980. The thing I can tell you about him from my studies is that his career in the U.S. kind of peeled off by the end of the 1950s into the 60s. He didn't have any more hits in the United States after that. But for an odd reason that I'm not really sure about, his fame soared in the United Kingdom and in Europe, and even now it's still huge over there. Many, many, many years later, long after his initial success. Some of the songs that I think stand out, I got this greatest hits because it's difficult to find the albums that were originally released, but this has Rock Around the Clock, See You Later Alligator, Rattle, Shake, Rattle, and Roll. These are all songs that were top hits for him and are well known as being Bill Haley and the Comets songs. So over the years, Bill Haley, the Comets, there was over 100 different people play, but all the original Comets and then the subsequent Comets were all brought into the band mostly by him in the 50s, and then later, as they broke away because of payroll, he wasn't paying them enough, I guess, so they started their own band and called themselves the Comets and just kind of move away from him, but he still had his own Comet. So there's been a bunch of reiterations of this band, and that had nothing to do with Bill Haley, really. So he was brought into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1987. Of course, harmoniously. Sorry, I never can get that word. I'll apologize for that. The Comets came in as a backup band or a backing group. They were inducted in 2012. There was no rule for backup bands up until then. Once they put the backing bands in, then his band got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a backing band to Bill Haley himself. He also had an asteroid named after him, the Bill Haley asteroid, to mark his 25th anniversary of his death. So he died in 1981, and so I guess in 2006 they named an asteroid after him. He's also on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, which happened in February the 8th, 1960. So he's been on there for a fair length of time. And he was named to the National Ragtime Blues Hall of Fame. Really. So he's been he's in a few different halls of fame for his music, and he kind of was the face in the 50s of that genre of music, because you look at some of the movies that went forward, the making of American Graffiti. This was a big Rock Around the Clock was a big song in that movie, and then they used that song also in Happy Days, which was a big TV series back in the 1970s, kind of I guess a revival of the 1950s. And he actually toured Europe in the 60s and also England, where he received standing ovations everywhere he went. So one of the bigger rock stars of that time period. And I don't think you can do a series from stars of the 1950s without including Bill Haley and the Comets. So that's my take today for the series episode. This is number 3. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Please hit the like and subscribe. And if you want to make any comments about Bill Haley or about the Comets or about the music or anything that I've said, you can do that as well. We'll be back next Thursday afternoon with another artist. The artist we're going to be doing next week is Chuck Berry, another absolute face of rock and music from that time period. Maybe a little even heavier than Bill Haley. Definitely a rock sound for sure, and an iconic figure to to play it. So anyways, we'll see you all next Thursday for another episode of They Got It Started, the mini-series we are running for about 7 weeks. This will be episode 3. I hope to see you all for episode 4 next week. Take care, have yourself a good evening, and goodbye.